Emma Carter wiped the sweat from her brow as she finished milking the last cow in her family's barn. At just 17 years old, she was already used to hard work. Rising before dawn, feeding the animals, helping her dad with the tractor, and doing her homework late at night under a single dim bulb in their farmhouse kitchen. Life on the farm wasn't easy, but Emma didn't complain. She was tough, smart, and had big dreams. Today was no ordinary day. Today, Emma was going to New York City for her first ever interview. Several weeks ago, she had come across an online contest hosted by Venturo Dynamics, a multi-billion-dollar tech company famous for building cutting-edge renewable energy systems. The contest, called Next Innovator, promised a full-paid summer internship to the most creative teenage mind in the country. No resume or connections required, just an idea that could change the world. On a whim, Emma submitted her idea, using simple AI tools to help small farmers predict crop diseases before they spread. She never expected a response. But last week an email changed everything. Now, as her boots clicked nervously across the shiny marble floor of Venturo HQ in Manhattan, she felt everyone's eyes on her. Her dress was plain, her hands rough from years of manual work, and she didn't carry a fancy tablet or designer handbag like the others in the building. Still, she stood tall at the reception desk. "Hi, I'm Emma Carter. I'm here for the Next Innovator interview." The receptionist raised an eyebrow and looked her up and down before giving a polite, practiced smile. "Take the elevator to the 31st floor." Emma nodded, gripping her small notepad tightly as she stepped into the elevator. Upstairs in a sleek, modern boardroom, 10 other finalists were already seated, most of them from elite prep schools and tech academies. They exchanged smug smiles and subtle glances as Emma walked in. Then came Damien Rourke, the 40-year-old CEO of Venturo. He was infamous for his arrogance, sharp tongue, and ruthlessly high standards. Wearing a $5,000 suit and a steel wristwatch, he looked more like a movie villain than a CEO. He stood at the head of the table, scanned the room, and smirked. "So," he said, voice cold and confident, "these are the future minds of America. Let's see if any of you are worth my time." His eyes landed on Emma. "And you must be—" "Emma Carter," she said. Damien checked the list in front of him. "Right, the farmer's daughter." A few teens chuckled under their breath. Emma remained silent. "Well then," Damien said, "let's make this simple. You all have 30 minutes to solve a real-world problem. One solution. Think fast. We'll hear your ideas after." The screen behind him flashed with a challenge. "How would you introduce our solar-powered microgrid system in rural areas with no internet, high illiteracy, and zero infrastructure?" The students jumped into action, typing on laptops, opening spreadsheets. Emma didn't even open her phone. She quietly took out a pencil and paper, closed her eyes for a second, and began sketching a layout, something she had seen in her own village. Her model included a central hub powered by solar energy, equipped with voice-controlled kiosks in local languages. She wrote down simple, local, accessible. Then she drew lines connecting neighboring villages, showing how a shared system could grow naturally over time. When the timer rang, the candidates presented. A tall boy from Boston spoke first, showing complex financial models and plans to fly drones with internet rotors. A girl from California proposed an app-based system with biometric access and blockchain security. Emma was called last. She walked up with her hand-drawn paper. A few students snickered. "I don't have a slideshow," she said, "but I have something real. I've lived in rural America all my life. Technology that's too complicated doesn't help us, it just gets ignored." She described a solar-powered hub, where people could access tools by touching screens that spoke aloud in their language. No passwords, no reading, just tap and talk. She also suggested training local villagers as champions, who'd manage the system and earn small commissions, making the project self-sustaining. Damien leaned forward. "And how do you pay the champions?" he asked. "Profit sharing," Emma replied. "The more people use it, the more they earn. That means they have a reason to keep it running." Damien stared at her for a moment. For the first time, he didn't look amused. He looked curious. The room fell quiet after Emma Carter finished her simple yet powerful presentation. No slides, no spreadsheets, just her sketch, her voice, and an idea rooted in real life. For the first time since the interview began, the arrogance that had filled the air seemed to fade. Damien Rourke, the famously hard-nosed CEO of Venturo Dynamics, leaned back in his chair and studied Emma with narrowed eyes. He wasn't used to being impressed, especially not by someone who had dirt under their fingernails and didn't come from an Ivy League pipeline. Still, he wasn't ready to let her off easily. "You've got heart," he said coldly, "but heart doesn't run a company. Let's test your mind." He stood up and walked toward the massive touchscreen wall. With a few taps, he brought up a blank screen and wrote a question in bold letters. "If you had only $100 and 1 week to get a village of 500 people to use your system, how would you do it?" He turned back to her. "No donors, no investors, no help, just you, the system, and $100. Convince us." There were a few snickers around the room. This was a trap question, meant to expose holes in Emma's cute little idea. But Emma didn't flinch. She took a deep breath. "I'd start with one person," she said. "Someone everyone trusts. A school teacher, a retired nurse, even the guy who fixes radios." Damien raised an eyebrow. "I'd use the $100 to build a basic prototype using scrap solar panels and a speaker system. Materials you can often borrow or repurpose from local junkyards. I'd invite that trusted person to try it, then ask them to tell others." "Word of mouth?" Damien asked, skeptical. Emma nodded. "In rural communities, trust spreads faster than technology. If one respected person vouches for it, everyone listens." Damien crossed his arms. "What if they don't trust it?" "Then I go back and fix what's broken, because if it doesn't work for the first person, it won't work for anyone. Technology should adapt to people, not the other way around." The room was still. Even the other candidates, who had once scoffed at Emma, now watched her in silence. Finally, Damien said, "Thank you, that's all." Emma returned to her seat, her hands slightly shaking, but her eyes steady. 30 minutes later, the candidates waited outside the boardroom while the panel deliberated. Some whispered about who might win. A few still seemed confident, especially the ones with perfect presentations and high test scores. Emma sat alone on a bench, her notepad resting on her lap. She wasn't expecting to win. In fact, she was already proud of herself for making it this far. Suddenly, the door opened. Damien Rourke stepped out. He looked around and said, "We've made our decision. The winner of the Venturo Next Innovator internship is..." He paused, eyes scanning the group. Emma Carter." For a moment, no one moved. Then one of the boys muttered, "You're kidding." But Damien wasn't smiling. "She's the only one who understood what innovation actually means," he said firmly. "It's not about flashy tech or buzzwords. It's about solving real problems with real people in mind." Emma didn't just talk, she listened, she observed, and she created something that could actually work. Emma stood slowly, stunned. "You'll be flown back next week to begin," Damien added. "Full access to our labs, engineers, and leadership team. Congratulations." As Emma followed him back inside to sign the offer, the same receptionist who had doubted her earlier gave a slight smile and a respectful nod. 1 month later, Emma stood in a bustling lab at Venturo HQ, wearing a white badge that read, "Lead Intern, Rural Innovation Program." She was no longer just a farmer's daughter. She was leading a pilot project with a team of engineers, building real prototypes of her solar-powered village hub. Her sketch had turned into a reality. Reporters came to interview her. Tech blogs wrote headlines like, "Teen girl from Iowa outsmarts Ivy League candidates to win top tech internship." From the barn to the boardroom. How one idea is powering rural America. But Emma didn't care about the spotlight. What mattered most was when her dad called from the farm and said, "Your design. They're testing it in the next town over. People love it. They said it's simple and it just works." That was enough for her. Final scene. Before leaving for a rural field test, Emma walked past Damien's office. He was on a call but looked up and saw her. He raised a hand. "Emma," he said, "I underestimated you. You've got more than just a good mind, you've got vision." She smiled. "Thanks, but I still think I left my best sketch back home and in the barn." He laughed for the first time. "Bring it with you next time, we could use more of that."